Good morning and welcome to Wellbeing Wednesday. I'm delighted today to be joined by Danielle Beeken from By Kindly Limited. Mindful design is what we're going to talk about, and the brand is Kindly. I know that you, amongst other things, you have quite a holistic view, feng shui of design, but there's quite a bit more to you than that, isn't there? Tell me more.
Yeah, so I don't practice feng shui. I understand the principles and I've studied it on a very superficial level, but what I took from it was something I already knew. It just endorsed something I'd learned over 25 years of designing, that, you know, certain things are absolutely imperative when it comes to putting a thoughtful design together for a client. And, you know, the basic key elements of that will be sunlight, spaciousness, or how you use the space, that it works for you on a physical level. Specifically colour, obviously. Some colours work for some people in certain environments. They can affect the light values of a room and enhance a northern facing room, for instance, if you choose the right colour. Using key simple natural elements in a room has always been something that I've known makes a difference to how you feel. If you walk into a timber chalet up the mountains, for instance, you feel quite warm immediately and you feel quite grounded, and it's because it's made from wood. It just happens. And then, you know, the other thing for me would always be plants. I'd always look at bringing the outside in some way. I'm not the best plant carer.
That's a relief.
If they survive, it's a happy accident. So I probably end up with plants that I know will survive.
Yeah.
But the one thing I have learned, and this came from, I've been, I think, practicing as a designer for about 6 or 7 years, and my husband and I adopted 2 children who were 3 and 4, and they came with almost nothing. In fact, what they came with was a tiny little children's little suitcase with a few little toys, and they arrived. And taking 2 little strangers into your home and then preparing a bedroom, not knowing much about them. I think I had 3 things about them that they liked in total. How do you, and I'm a designer, how do you decorate for 2 little souls bedrooms to make them feel connected in some way? So those 3 things I heard and knew they liked were, or particularly for my son, for instance, was under the sea. He loved anything to do with the ocean and animals generally. And so I literally painted his room in a sort of sea theme, and we had a whole wall of mural. I really went to town on it. I loved it. And for my daughter, I knew she loved anything to do with pink and sparkly and fairies and dancing, and so she got little dancing fairies that I hand painted around her room, and that was all I could do. But when they walked into those spaces, they both knew that was their room. I didn't tell them. They came in, and in fact, it was my son who said, "Where's my room? I'm going to have my own room." I said, "Yeah, you are. Off you go." And he went and found it, and he knew it was his because he opened the door and he went, "There's your killer whale. That's my room." My daughter.
With my son, it was dinosaurs. My son had a huge dinosaur mural on his wall.
Yeah, so that sort of immediately, and seeing how they connected, again, just reinforced what I already knew but had never really packaged in my business, was how important it was to really find out from my clients in a professional capacity what helps them to connect, you know, what resonates with them on a positive level to make them feel you know, that their home as they go through the door is their sanctuary. And it never has that been more important than now with what's happened in the last 2 years. You know, if you don't feel when you walk into your home a really lovely connection, I would hope that everything we design lifts somebody's spirit. You know, they go in, they go, oh, warm, or just you know, put your bag down and just go, I'm home. And if I don't create that, I've failed. That's absolutely what I want. Not everybody wants it. They don't say to me, I want to feel when I walk through my door. But I ask them if they do. I often say, what do you want to feel in here? And you know, I guess where this might apply to most people working from home now, we don't have, none of us, most of us don't have enormous houses where we can dedicate a room and say, that's my office. And when 2 or more of you are working at home and kids are studying, how do you personalise little spaces in the house where you work or study and create a mindful environment that lifts your spirit or keeps you focused or helps you to feel positive or creative, or whatever it is you need in your work or study, what can you do? And there's a few little things you can do. And the first thing you have to look at is natural light. You have to look at that. And even if it's a shelf under a window or near a window where you sit and connect with the outside in some way, you have to find that. It's so important. Never work in an enclosed environment, and preferably never face a wall, because it's like energy just drops dead there.
Yeah.
So wall behind you, and if you can, but because that makes you feel a little bit safer. And never with an opening door behind you, as you've got there, if you can help it. But certainly have a position where you can see outside, and you benefit from that light. Now, you may have to add light to the room to give you a perfectly lit space if you're facing north. It doesn't matter if the room faces north, as long as you're getting natural daylight. So I look at that, and then obviously we look at things like, how do you move in that space? So if your desk is a bit too big for the space and you can't get around it easily to go and make a cup of tea, if every time you get up to move around it to go make a cup of tea it's annoying, you probably won't drink enough water in the day because it's not allowing to flow freely. So think about the things that are important in your working environment that make your life easier. Try and look at how you move in that space. Can you get your desk chair far enough away to stand up without bashing your knees or knocking things over? Just pare everything back a little bit. But
I have to be careful that I don't push my chair back and go flying down the stairs.
I was going to say, you are in such a vulnerable position. It's not good for you. We'll talk about that another day. I'll sort you out. But the other thing, plants. Bring the outside in, and the reason plants are good and start. Everybody says to me, "Oh, I'm rubbish with plants." I say, "You're not. You've just never really given it time." And if they're near to you, if they're right on your desk, you find a little space. I don't care what it is, but get something. There's lots of them that are low maintenance. Start with a peace lily. Couldn't be easier. It tells you when it's thirsty because the leaves drop down. They go flop. They give it some water and it picks up again. They're so hardy, and they don't mind being in a dark environment. But what they do is produce oxygen at the end of the day, and it's so important that we refresh, get air in. Open your windows every morning, and air the place. So I can't walk into people's homes and say you must open your windows. I do if I can see they're just not doing it because I'm bossy. But I look much more at looking at things that will make them feel more comfortable on a physical level. And then the mindful bit is then bringing in a story for them, finding things or helping them to identify the things that mean something to them that need to be.
It's funny, we were talking before we started recording about Criminal Minds and Penelope Garcia. And when you go into her working space, it's all filled with things that are like fluffy and glittery and sparkly and lights and all the rest of it. And we were saying how, although that may not be our cup of tea, it's finding what works for you, whether that be a simple picture of the family, or whether it be lots of fluffy pens and pencils.
Doesn't matter what it is. The only thing I would say is it's worth sort of looking at things like the psychology of colour, because that makes a massive difference. So I think I mentioned this in our group at the Alliance once, that using a bright blue, if you're struggling to find clarity, if you think about looking at the blue sky, do that. If we've got a blue sky, we've got a bit today, if you have a good look at the blue sky when you're struggling to find a way forward or a bit of clarity, you'd be surprised at what a few minutes of looking at that sky can do, and then come back and think again. It's an incredibly positive colour. So I have a desk saver at home, that's a pale blue. I've got a little blue book on my. I don't use this book at all, but it's just there. But it just reminds me I'm struggling. Have a little gaze at that colour, and it does help. It helps lift my energy just a little bit, enough for me to. It reminds me that that's what I need to do. Go and look at the sky. Go outside. So
it's amazing, and I think like we're going to have to definitely record again. And talk a bit more in depth about these things, but thank you so much for joining me today, and I know, and I'm going to keep my eye open for some posts from you about interior design as well.
I will do. I'll get a bit better at LinkedIn.
You're a star. Thank you so much, Danielle. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Sandy, thank you.